Hey Tires, Darren here, back with another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be doing a Jack Gartside Soft Hackle streamer. This is one of Jack Gartside's earlier designs, and it can be tied either for freshwater or saltwater. And to that end, it's actually quite effective for a number of different species that range both in fresh and saltwater. So on the saltwater side you have things like snook, striped bass, tarpon, and on the freshwater side you've got things like steelhead, salmon, and bass and trout. So it's a very versatile pattern. You might notice that it looks a little bit like an Alaskabou or a Popsicle, you might know it as. Now the styles are pretty close. They do have somewhat of a difference in the way that you tie them, and we'll go through that as we tie the pattern. So I guess there has been some long debate on which came first, George Cook's Alaskabou or Jack Gartside's Soft Hackle streamer. Either way, they're both wonderful patterns. It doesn't really matter which one came first. So let's have a look at the material list and get started tying up the Jack Gartside Soft Hackle streamer. Let's get a fresh hook in the vise. I'm using a number, I guess this is about a number 2, and it's actually a SEMA hook. This one's from Piscator, and it says it's size 14. That's the Asian style sizing on that. And I'm going to be using a 6/0 dark olive for this. I'll be tying this one in a different color than the one you saw in the previews. It was an orange and brown, sort of a chili pepper, as well as a black and blue. This one I'm going to tie, this one's more of a trout themed coloration. This one will be olive and tan. So we'll just start by putting on a bit of a thread base. Don't need to go too far back. And just want to make sure we have some scissors here. Sorry about that. I'll just trim that tag end. I'm going to start off a little bit of silver Flashabou. I'm going to take about 4 or 5 strands. Don't need a ton. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that back about 3 inches off the back of the hook there. Tie that in with a few wraps, and we'll take the tag end and lay it down over there, and we'll just trim it off with 3-inch. You can add a little bit more flash than that if you like, but you don't need too much. Just want this to be somewhat of a subdued pattern. Alright, so I've prepared an olive hackle here. This is an olive Marabou. I've just taken the fluff off the bottom of this blood quill. So we're going to tie that in by the base. I'm going to take it up a little ways, fold back that stem, tie that down, trim off the excess there. And then next, I'm going to take a pair of hackle pliers and this is the style that I like using for Marabou. I'm just going to clamp that tip of that feather, and we're just going to try and double this back best we can. Now, we'll be honest here and just say that my preference is to tie Marabou in by the tip and then palmer downwards, but this is how the recipe for this pattern calls for, so that's what we're doing here. So we just want to try and get that facing rear as we wind it. And we're just going to stroke all the hackle fibers back, and we're going to wind a little bit forward as we go. You want to try it, get everything facing backwards here. Right, and then once we've used up the usable marabou, we'll come in with a couple thread wraps just to secure that off. Trim off the tip. Just going to come through with a brush here, just try and get out some of that marabou that might have got locked down there. Alright, next we're going to take a tan marabou feather, and we'll prepare that the same way. Just strip the fluff off the bottom, and it's there's a bit of a concave, and I'm going to tie it with the concave side down along the body of the fly. Just going to wrap that forward, bend the stem back. And we'll trim the rest of that stem off. And again, we're going to take our hackle pliers. I'm going to come in here and try and bend that feather back a little bit if we can. And then we're just going to do a few winds. Let's get our thread out of the way there. Try and do about 3 or 4 wraps of marabou on the front here. It's a little bit easier to wind as you get to the front. That should be good. So we'll just catch the tip of the marabou there. It's a bit of a mess, as you can see, but we're going to come in and clean that up. Trim off that tip. And we're going to take our brush and just come in here gently and pull all those marabou fibers back in line. Looks pretty good. I'm just going to take this thread and wrap it a little bit back over top of those fibers. And then we're going to take a lemon wood duck flank feather here. Just going to strip a few of the fibers off the bottom. That feather. I'm going to tie that in by the tip here. Fold back that tip to lock it in place. Trim that off. We'll grab our hackle pliers again. And we're just going to double that feather and palmer it backwards. pretty slippery feather stem there. I'm going to have to invest in some new hackle pliers, perhaps. Alright, so we had about 2.5 turns of the wood duck. I can use different materials for that collar. I've used guinea fowl, mallard, teal works well if you have it. Let's just give that a few rips through. This is a nice natural colored bait fish imitation. This will be great for pike, bass, and trout. Just finish cleaning up this head just a touch. Whip finish. And there you go. Gartside Soft Hackle Streamer. Thanks for stopping by my fly tying channel and watching my tutorials. If you're new here and like this sort of thing, why not hit that subscribe button? I'd love to hear from you, so if you have anything to say, leave it in the comments below. Until next time, this is Darren saying, keep a hook in your vise. Cheers.